The gallery's ambient lighting turned the marble floors into liquid gold as Diana stepped backward, pulse racing. Dixon's hand caught her elbow with practiced pressure, his polished smile masking the fury underneath. "We're not finished talking." Her gaze swept the room of donors and collectors in their tailored finery. That's when she saw him, a man who didn't merely attend the charity gala. He possessed it. Sharp cheekbones, obsidian eyes, power wrapped in a three-piece Brioni suit. Without calculating consequences, Diana moved forward and crossed an irreversible line. She wrapped her arms around the stranger's neck and kissed him. His entire body went taut beneath her touch, breath stopping like a held trigger. The men flanking him shifted closer, hands disappearing inside jacket folds. She felt his lips curve against hers, felt the dangerous amusement in his whisper. "You either have extraordinary courage or a death wish," he murmured in Korean-accented English, voice like honey over a blade's edge. "Which one should I believe?" Dixon advanced through the crowd, polite veneer cracking into territorial rage. The stranger's hand settled possessively on her waist. "Warm, solid, claiming, breathe," he commanded softly, his mouth still inches from hers. "And tell me very quickly, should I have security escort him out, or would you prefer I make this personal?" Security? Who the hell had she just kissed? Diana Fisher had learned young that survival meant making yourself small, unthreatening, safe. Tonight, she'd just made herself his. What happens when one desperate kiss binds you to the most dangerous man in the city? When protection comes with a price written in shadows? Diana's about to discover that escaping one cage might mean choosing another one with velvet walls and a lock only Kang Min-jun holds the key to. The kiss was just the beginning. The protection? That comes with consequences. Subscribe now to follow Diana's journey from desperate escape to dangerous devotion. The moment Dixon disappeared into the crowd, escorted by two stone-faced men in black, Diana's knees nearly buckled. The stranger's hand remained at her waist, steady as an anchor in a storm she'd created herself. "Walk with me," he said. Not a request. She walked, through the gallery's private corridors, past security that melted aside without a word, into an elevator that required no button press. The chrome doors reflected her flushed face beside his impassive one. Diana's mind raced through fragments of overheard conversations, whispered warnings from other gallery assistants. Kang Min-jun. That's Kang Min-jun. Art collector. Philanthropist. And if the rumors were true, crime lord. The penthouse office spread before them like a kingdom of glass and steel, the city glittering 40 floors below. Min-jun shrugged off his jacket, draping it over a chair with casual precision. When he turned to face her, his expression had shifted from amused to calculated. "Do you know what you did tonight?" His voice carried the same dangerous silk from earlier. "I kissed you." Her voice came out smaller than intended. "You claimed me." He stepped closer, each movement deliberate. "In front of my associates, in front of your ex-fiancé, in front of 200 witnesses who will talk." His head tilted, studying her like art he was considering acquiring. "That kiss was a contract, Miss Fisher, whether you understood the terms or not." Her breath caught. "How do you know my name? I own 3 galleries in this city. I know everyone who works in them." He moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of something amber. "The question is, do you understand what you've purchased with that performance?" "Performance?" Anger flared through her fear. He was going to... I know exactly what he was going to do. Min-jun handed her a glass, his fingers brushing hers. Dixon Rothschild. Old money, new debts, fragile ego, the worst combination. He took a slow sip. "But you didn't just escape him tonight. You bound yourself to me." The weight of it settled over her shoulders. "I expect loyalty," he continued, voice dropping lower. "Complete honesty. And in return?" He pulled a business card from his pocket, followed by a key. "You call me when you need me. And you won't spend another night in that apartment 3 blocks from his townhouse." Diana stared at the key, platinum and heavy. "I don't. You do now." He pressed both into her palm, his hand closing over hers. "Exclusive building. Doorman security. Top floor. Consider it payment for services rendered." "I'm not a..." "No," he interrupted, voice sharp as broken glass. "You're a woman who had the courage to take what she needed. Most people never do." His thumb traced her knuckles. "The apartment is yours. No conditions. My number is yours. One condition." "What condition?" His eyes locked onto hers, obsidian and absolute. "When I call, you answer. When I claim you were mine tonight, you don't contradict me. And when your ex-fiancé tries again, and he will, you call me first." He released her hand. "That's the contract you signed with your lips." Diana Fisher. She should run, should throw the key back at him, should call the police. Instead, She closed her fist around the platinum key and felt something like freedom for the first time in 3 years. "What's the address?" Minjun smiled. Not kindly, but honestly. "I'll have my driver take you there now. Your things will arrive by morning." He turned toward the window, dismissing her with kingly ease. "Welcome to the contract, Miss Fisher. Try not to break the terms." Diana walked to the elevator on trembling legs, the key burning in her palm like a promise, or a chain, maybe both. The email arrived at 9:47 a.m., 3 days after Diana moved into the penthouse apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows and silence so profound it felt like luxury itself. Subject: concerns regarding Miss Fisher's professional conduct. Her hands shook as she read Director Chen's carefully worded summons. Someone had filed a complaint about her behavior at the charity gala. Inappropriate conduct with a donor. Question judgment. Potential reassignment pending review. She didn't need to guess who. By noon, 2 major collectors had mysteriously withdrawn their consignments from exhibitions Diana had spent months curating. By 2 p.m., she'd overheard junior staff whispering about her involvement with dangerous men. By 4, her assistant had been quietly reassigned. Dixon wasn't coming for her body this time. He was dismantling her career, piece by surgical piece. Diana stood in the gallery's storage room, surrounded by crated paintings worth millions, and felt the walls closing in. She'd escaped his control only to watch him destroy everything she'd built. Her phone felt heavy in her pocket, the number she'd been given, the contract she'd signed with her lips. Her fingers moved before her pride could stop them. He answered on the first ring. "Deanna." Minjun's voice carried that same dark honey tone, as if he'd been expecting her call. "He's trying to ruin me." The words tumbled out, raw and desperate. "Not physically, but professionally. My director received complaints. Collectors are pulling out. My assistant was reassigned this afternoon." She pressed her palm against a crate to steady herself. "He's destroying my reputation." Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. "Where are you?" Minjun asked, voice dropping into something colder. "The gallery storage room, 5th floor. Stay there. I'll handle this." "How can you?" The line went dead. 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a screenshot of financial documents. Dixon's investment portfolio, his family trust distributions, his club memberships and board positions, each one highlighted in red with 2 words beneath. Leverage identified. Her phone rang again. "Minjun." "Put this on speaker," he commanded. "You should hear how contracts are enforced." Before she could respond, the line clicked. A 3-way call. Dixon's voice came through, irritated and smug. "Who the hell is this?" "The man whose woman you're currently sabotaging." Minjun's voice could have cut diamonds. "Dixon Rothschild. Born to old money, drowning in new debt. Shall I list your creditors, or would you prefer I discuss the margin calls you've been dodging?" Silence. Then, "You can't. I already have." Each word landed like a blade. "Your primary investment account will be frozen within the hour for suspected fraud. Anonymous tip. Very credible. Your family's trust will receive documentation of your rather creative expense reports. And that board position you're so proud of? I'm having dinner with Chairman Walsh tonight. He owes me favors. This is illegal. So is blackmail. So is professional sabotage. So is harassment." Minjun's voice never rose, never wavered. "Here's what happens now. You will call Director Chen and withdraw your complaint, citing a misunderstanding. You will personally contact every collector you've poisoned against Miss Fisher and reverse your recommendations. You will disappear from her professional life as completely as you've disappeared from her personal one. And if I refuse, then I don't freeze your accounts, I empty them. I don't tip off the trust, I audit it. I don't speak to Walsh, I buy his company and fire you myself." A pause, loaded with dark promise. "I'm giving you a chance to walk away intact, Mr. Rothschild. Most men don't get that courtesy from me. Accept it." The line went dead. Diana stared at her phone, heart hammering. Minjun's voice returned, private line restored. "He'll comply within the hour. The complaints will disappear by morning." A beat. "Are you all right?" She should be horrified, should be terrified of what she'd just witnessed. Instead, she felt the walls expanding, the air returning to her lungs. "I'm all right," she whispered. "Good. My driver will collect you at 6. We need to discuss the terms of protection more thoroughly." His voice softened, just slightly. "And Diana? Next time he moves against you, call me before he draws blood. That's what the contract means." The line went silent. Diana sank against the crate, Minjun's card still clutched in her hand, and realized she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of how safe he made her feel. The restaurant had no sign, no windows, just a steel door in an alley that opened into understated elegance. Private booths lined with soundproof panels. Waitstaff that moved like shadows. Minjun guided her to the back corner with his hand at the small of her back, proprietary and warm. "No one listens here," he said, pulling out her chair. "No recordings, no witnesses. Just truth." Diana settled into the leather seat, hyper-aware of the security cameras she couldn't see and the men she knew were watching. The wine he poured was older than she was. The label French and unpronounceable. "Why did you really help me?" The question escaped before her courage could fail. "Men like you don't intervene without reason." Minjun's fingers traced the stem of his glass, his gaze distant for the first time since she'd met him. "When I was 23, I was in love. Her name was Ji-yeon." His voice carried an old wound, scarred but still tender. "She was a violinist. Brilliant, kind, everything I wasn't." He took a slow sip. "A rival, someone who wanted what I was building, decided the best way to hurt me was through her." Diana's breath caught. "He didn't kill her. That would have been mercy." Minjun's jaw tightened. He destroyed her hands, crushed every bone, made sure she'd never play again, never create again, made sure I'd see the destruction every time I looked at her. His eyes lifted, meeting hers with brutal honesty. "She left me 6 months later. Said she couldn't bear being the weapon someone used against me." "Minjun, I watched a man use power to control and destroy someone gentle, someone talented, someone who'd done nothing except exist near me." He leaned forward, voice dropping to that dangerous whisper. "I swore I'd never allow it again. Not to my mother when my father's enemies came for her. Not to my sister when men thought they could leverage her for access to me." His hand reached across the table, covering hers. "And not to you when I saw that bastard's grip on your arm." Diana's throat tightened. "You don't even know me. I know the look in your eyes. I've seen it before." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "The same calculation my mother made. The same compromise my sister almost accepted. Safety in exchange for freedom. Survival in exchange for self." The words cracked something open inside her chest. "I was going to marry him," she whispered. "Not because I loved him. Because he was safe. Stable." Her voice broke. "I grew up in a house where the electricity got shut off every winter. Where dinner was whatever didn't spoil. Where my mother worked 3 jobs and still couldn't keep us fed." She pulled her hand back, wrapping both around her wine glass like a lifeline. "Dixon was old money, old stability, and I thought if I could just be small enough, agreeable enough, perfect enough, I'd never be cold or hungry again. But you were suffocating, every single day." Tears burned behind her eyes. "He controlled where I worked, who I saw, what I wore, and I let him because I was terrified that if I left, I'd end up back in that house with the shut-off notices and empty refrigerator." She looked up, meeting Minjun's gaze. "That kiss wasn't brave. It was desperate. I was drowning and you were the only solid thing in the room." Minjun stood, moving around the table with lethal grace. He pulled her to her feet, his hands framing her face with unexpected gentleness. "You think desperation isn't brave?" His voice was rough velvet. "You think survival isn't courage?" He tilted her chin up. "You chose risk over safety. You chose the unknown over the familiar cage. That's the bravest thing most people never do." "You're a criminal," she breathed. "Yes, no hesitation, no apology. But I'm an honest one. And I'll never make you small to keep you safe." His forehead touched hers. "That's my promise, Diana. You'll never be cold or hungry or controlled again. Not while I'm breathing." She should push him away. Should run. Instead, she let herself believe him. Minjun's phone vibrated against the table 3 times in rapid succession. His expression shifted, warmth evaporating into something arctic and lethal. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. "I need to handle something." He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced efficiency. "You can wait here, or I'll come with you." The words surprised them both. His eyes searched hers, weighing something she couldn't name. "You might not like what you see." "I haven't liked most things about my life lately," Deanna said, rising. "At least with you, I know what I'm choosing." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Then come." They moved through a concealed door behind the kitchen, down a corridor lined with art worth more than most homes, into an office that felt like a throne room. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a desk carved from a single piece of black walnut. 3 men in suits waited, tension radiating from them like heat. "Sir, the Park family made their move. They've leaked our shipping manifests to the press and triggered an investigation into our Seoul accounts." The speaker was young, furious. "They're trying to force us out of the waterfront contracts." Minjun crossed to his desk with predatory calm, fingers flying across his tablet. Numbers cascaded down the screen: accounts, holdings, leverage points, Diana recognized the same cold calculation he'd used on Dixon, but magnified tenfold. Pull our capital from Park Industries joint ventures immediately. All of it. His voice could have frozen blood. Contact our friends at the Financial Supervisory Service. I believe Park Jae-sung's tax filings deserve a very thorough audit going back 7 years. Sir, I'm not finished. Min-jun's smile was a blade. His son's club in Gangnam, the one laundering money through liquor distribution, send the evidence anonymously to every major news outlet. His daughter's art foundation, the one embezzling donations. Make sure the prosecutor's office receives a complete forensic accounting by morning. He looked up, eyes empty of mercy. And the shipment they're expecting Thursday from Busan? Ensure customs finds enough irregularities to seize the entire cargo. Diana's stomach dropped as she watched fortunes collapse with a few sentences. By Friday morning, Park Jae-sung will be defending himself on 4 fronts with no capital, no allies, and no reputation. Min-jun set down the tablet. He wanted to force me out of business. I'll force him out of the country. Make it happen. The men bowed and left like smoke. Silence filled the office, broken only by the city's distant hum. Min-jun turned to face her, no apology in his expression. That's what I am, he said quietly. Not a man who punches people in alleys, a man who destroys them systematically. Legally, mostly, but destruction all the same. Diana's hands trembled. You just ruined an entire family. I ruined a family that tried to ruin mine. He moved closer, giving her space to retreat if she wanted. My operation is built on high-level finance, import-export businesses, real estate holdings, investment firms, all legitimate on paper. His voice dropped. But sometimes legitimate business requires the surgical removal of threats, corporate warfare, leveraged buyouts, strategic bankruptcies. I don't kill people, Diana. I kill their power. That's still criminal, yes. No flinching from the word. I exist in the gray spaces between legal and moral. I've built an empire by knowing exactly where those boundaries are and how to exploit them. He stopped an arm's length away. I have a code. I don't harm innocents. I don't tolerate drugs or trafficking. I protect my people absolutely. But anyone who threatens what's mine, his eyes hardened. I dismantle them piece by piece until there's nothing left. And I'm yours now, she whispered. Yes. Simple. Honest. Terrifying. Which means anyone who comes for you comes for me. And I don't lose, Deanna. Ever. She should be horrified. Should walk out that concealed door and never look back. Instead, she thought of Dixon's complaints disappearing, his collectors reversing course, the apartment she'd slept peacefully in for 3 nights without checking the locks. You promised I'd never be controlled again, she said carefully, and I meant it. Then I need to choose this, knowing what you are, what you do. She met his gaze, steady despite her racing heart. I need to choose the monster who keeps his promises over the man who broke every one. Min-jun's expression shifted surprise. Respect. Something dangerously close to reverence. Then choose, he said softly. Diana closed the distance between them and kissed him. This time, it wasn't desperation. It was acceptance. She just kissed the monster. Now she has to live with him. When you choose the villain over the hero, when protection means accepting darkness, when love requires compromising everything you thought you believed, that's when the real story begins. Diana's made her choice. But choosing Min-jun's world means living in it. And his world doesn't forgive hesitation. Subscribe now for the rest of the story. The gallery was closed. Lights dimmed to soft halos that made the paintings glow like windows into other worlds. Min-jun led her through the space with his hand at the small of her back, past Rothkos and Basquiat's, abstract expressions of violence and beauty captured on canvas. This is my favorite collection, he said, stopping before a massive painting swirls of crimson and gold that looked like passion or bloodshed, depending on how the light struck it. Most people see chaos. I see control barely contained. Diana studied the brush strokes, the aggressive slashes of color. It's beautiful and terrible at the same time, like recognizing like, Min-jun murmured, his reflection ghosting beside hers in the gallery glass. That's what you are, you know. Beauty that survived something terrible. Strength wrapped in grace. She turned to face him. Is that why you helped me? Because you saw yourself? No. He stepped closer, the space between them charged and delicate. I helped you because in that moment when you wrapped your arms around me and claimed me in front of everyone, I saw someone who refused to be a victim. Someone who took what she needed. His hand lifted, fingers tracing her jawline with reverence. I've built an empire on taking what I need. But you You did it with nothing but courage and desperation. That's real power, Diana. Her breath caught. I'm not powerful. I'm terrified. Of me? No. The truth spilled out before she could stop it. Of this. Of what I feel when you look at me like I'm worth protecting. Like I'm worth. She trailed off, vulnerable in a way she hadn't been even when confessing her poverty. Like you're worth everything. Minjun finished, his voice dropping to that dangerous whisper. Because you are. He cupped her face with both hands, forcing her to hold his gaze. I fell in love with you the moment you kissed me. Not because you were beautiful, though you are. Not because you were desperate, though you were. But because you took control of your own fate when every instinct told you to submit and survive. Minjun, I've loved exactly twice in my life, he continued, raw honesty replacing his usual control. Ji-yeon, who was gentle and kind and broke under the weight of my world, and you who looked at my darkness tonight and chose it anyway. His thumb brushed her lower lip. You recognized your own fire, didn't you? Saw that we're the same underneath everything else. Tears burned her eyes. I'm not like you. Yes, you are. Absolute certainty. You survived poverty by being small. I survived violence by being dangerous. But we both learned the same lesson: safety is an illusion, and control is the only currency that matters. He leaned closer, breath warm against her lips. The difference is I'm offering you control with me, not over you. That's terrifying. I know. His forehead touched hers. Love me or leave me, Diana. But don't lie to either of us about what this is. She could walk away. Return to her safe, small life. Find another Dixon with less cruelty and more distance. Or she could leap into the unknown with the man who'd already proven he'd burn the world to keep her safe. Diana closed the final inches between them and kissed him with every ounce of certainty she'd been too afraid to claim before. Minjun's arms wrapped around her, pulling her flesh against him, the kiss deepening into something that felt like falling and flying simultaneously. Take me home, she whispered against his mouth. My penthouse or your apartment? Ours. The word settled between them, a promise and a surrender. Take me to ours. Minjun swept her into his arms with effortless strength, carrying her through shadows and spotlights, past millions of dollars in art that couldn't capture what was happening between them. His driver materialized without being called. The car ride blurred into heated kisses and whispered confessions. The penthouse doors closed behind them with soft finality. When Minjun laid her on his bed, his eyes held a question and a warning. This isn't temporary, he said, voice rough with restraint. Once I have you, I keep you. That's who I am. Diana pulled him down to her, done with fear and hesitation. Then keep me, she breathed. And let me keep you. The city lights painted them in silver and shadow as they chose each other with hands and mouths and absolute, terrifying devotion. Some leaps required closing your eyes. This one required opening them. Detective Sarah Park waited outside the gallery on a Tuesday morning, her badge catching sunlight like a warning. She was Korean-American, mid-30s, with eyes that had seen too much and forgiven too little. Miss Fisher, 5 minutes of your time. Diana's stomach dropped, but she nodded. They walked to a coffee shop 2 blocks away, neutral territory that felt anything but safe. I'll be direct, Park said, sliding a manila folder across the table. Kang Min-jun is the target of a federal investigation. Money laundering through art sales and real estate. Extortion. Racketeering. We've been building a case for 18 months. She tapped the folder. And you're living in an apartment he owns, attending events as his companion, and curating his private collection. Diana's hands trembled around her coffee cup. I'm not involved in... I know you're not. Yet. Park's voice held professional sympathy. But association is enough to destroy your reputation. When we move on him, and we will, everyone connected to Kang Min-jun becomes collateral damage. Your career, your credibility, your future in the art world. She leaned forward. I'm offering you a way out. Cooperate with us. Provide information. Testify if needed. In exchange, we protect you. New identity if necessary. Clean break. You want me to betray him. The words tasted like ash. I want you to save yourself from a criminal. Park's expression hardened. He's not a businessman, Miss Fisher. He's a predator in an expensive suit. Diana opened the folder with shaking hands. Financial documents, surveillance photos, transaction records that painted Min-jun's empire in stark, damning detail. And at the bottom, a newspaper article dated 3 days ago. Prominent businessman Dixon Rothschild faces federal fraud charges. Her vision blurred as she read. His investment firm collapsed overnight. Clients discovered their funds had been systematically embezzled. The SEC had seized all assets. He was facing 20 years in federal prison. Convenient timing, Park said quietly. Your ex-fiancé destroyed the same week you moved in with Kang Min-jun. We don't believe in coincidences. Diana's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She knew. God help her, she knew exactly what had happened. Think about what I've said. Park stood, leaving a business card on top of the folder. Call me when you're ready to choose your own life over his. The apartment felt different when Deanna returned, like walking into a crime scene she'd been living in all along. Min-jun was in the kitchen, making coffee with domestic ease that seemed absurd given what she now knew. Dixon's been arrested, she said without preamble. Min-jun's movements didn't pause. I know. Did you do it? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He turned, meeting her gaze with that brutal honesty she'd come to expect. Yes. The embezzlement, the fraud charges, some of it was already there. He's always been sloppy with other people's money. Min-jun crossed to her, no apology in his posture. I simply ensured the right people found the evidence. Ensured the investigation couldn't be buried with his family's connections. Ensured the charges would stick. He's going to prison. For crimes he actually committed. Min-jun's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I didn't frame him, Diana. I just removed the protection his money and name afforded him. Let him face real consequences for real actions. You ruined his entire life. I removed your threat. Permanently. He cupped her face, forcing her to hold his gaze. As long as Dixon Rothschild had money and freedom, he would have come for you eventually. Men like him don't accept rejection. They plot and wait and strike when you feel safe. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Now he can't. Now you're free. Truly free. Detective Park was waiting for me this morning. The words spilled out. She knows everything. About you. About us. She wants me to cooperate with their investigation. Min-jun's expression didn't change, but something lethal flickered behind his eyes. And what did you tell her? Nothing. Diana's voice broke. I told her nothing because I don't know what to tell her. I don't know who I am anymore. He pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling her head. You're the woman who chose courage over safety, who chose truth over comfort. His lips brushed her temple, and now you have to choose again. Your conscience or your heart, the law or your life with me. Diana closed her eyes, breathing in his scent, expensive cologne and danger and home. She'd already made her choice the night she kissed him. Everything since had just been falling. Detective Park called 3 days later, her voice tight with urgency. We need to meet. Now. The coffee shop was different this time. Tucked in a corporate district where no one looked twice at two women hunched over documents. Park spread photographs across the table like tarot cards predicting doom. Min-jun, entering buildings at midnight. Exchange of briefcases. Meetings with men whose faces Diana recognized from news reports about organized crime. This goes to the grand jury in 6 weeks, Park said, her finger tapping a particularly damning photo. We have financial records, witness testimony, electronic surveillance. Kang Min-jun is going to prison, Miss Fisher. 25 to life. She leaned across the table. Unless you help us build an airtight case, wear a wire, document his meetings, access his private files. Diana's throat constricted. You want me to spy on him. I want you to do the right thing before it's too late. Park's voice softened with manufactured sympathy. You're not a criminal, Diana. You're a victim who got caught in a predator's web. Help us cut you free. And if I refuse, then you go down with him. Accessory charges, conspiracy, money laundering through those art transactions you've been facilitating. Park's eyes hardened. Your choice, your conscience, your future. Diana stared at the photographs, at the man she loved captured in moments of calculated criminality, and felt nothing but certainty. I'll think about it, she lied. That evening, Min-jun was waiting in his office, scotch poured and documents spread across the mahogany desk. He looked up when she entered, reading her expression with unnerving accuracy. Park came at you again. Not a question. She has photos, witnesses, financial records. Deanna crossed to him, exhaustion and decision weighing equally. She wants me to wear a wire. Min-jun's jaw tightened, but he gestured to the chair across from him. Before you decide, there's something you need to see. He slid a leather portfolio toward her. Inside were trust documents, corporate filings, bank statements from institutions in Singapore, Geneva, Tokyo. Her name appeared again and again: beneficiary, silent partner, board member of entities she'd never heard of. What is this? Your independence. He stood, moving around the desk to crouch beside her chair. 3 months ago, I began transferring legitimate assets into your name. Art galleries in Paris and New York, a venture capital firm in Seoul, commercial real estate in London. His hand covered hers on the documents. Every entity is clean, fully audited, completely legal, worth approximately $47 million. The number stole her breath. You did this without telling me? I did this because loving someone means ensuring they never have to choose security over freedom again. His voice was raw silk and absolute conviction. If I go to prison tomorrow, you're financially independent. If you walk away tonight, you're financially independent. If you testify against me, his voice didn't waver. You're still financially independent. Tears burned her eyes. You gave me a way out. I gave you a choice that's actually yours. He lifted her hand to his lips. Detective Park offers you freedom from me. I'm offering you freedom regardless of me. The difference is, I trust you to choose what you really want, not what fear demands. Diana looked at the documents, at the life he'd built for her in secret, at the man who'd weaponized his power to protect rather than control her. Detective Park's card sat heavy in her pocket, a lifeline to her old self, to moral certainty, to the woman who believed in simple definitions of right and wrong. But that woman had been suffocating, controlled, small. This woman was free. Diana pulled her phone from her pocket, opened her contacts, and found Detective Park's number. Minjun watched without speaking, his expression unreadable, as she hovered over the delete button. One choice, one moment, one irreversible commitment. She pressed delete. I choose this, she whispered, turning to face him fully. I choose you. I choose us. I choose the woman I am with you, not the woman the world thinks I should be. Minjun's control shattered. He pulled her into his arms with desperate reverence, his forehead pressed against hers. You're sure? Once you burn this bridge— I'm not burning a bridge, Diana interrupted, fierce certainty flooding her voice. I'm choosing which side of the river I want to live on. And it's here, with you, in the darkness that feels more honest than any light I've ever known. He kissed her like a man granted reprieve from execution, like she was oxygen and salvation and home. When they finally broke apart, he cupped her face with both hands. No matter what happens, he promised, you'll never be powerless again. Diana believed him. More terrifying, she believed herself. 6 months transformed everything. Diana stood in the Christie's auction house, catalog in hand, bidding on behalf of Minjun's expanding corporate collection. The Basquiat went for $12 million. She didn't flinch. Around her, collectors and curators whispered her name with respect, not scandal. Fisher had an eye. Fisher had taste. Fisher had power. The woman who'd been cornered by the caviar station felt like a ghost from someone else's life. Minjun had been methodical in his transition, shedding the gray area operations like a snake discarding old skin. The import-export businesses with questionable manifests sold to competitors. The waterfront contracts with ties to organized labor quietly divested. What remained was pristine. Investment firms managing billionaire portfolios, art galleries in 3 countries, commercial real estate that generated clean, auditable revenue. Going legitimate doesn't happen overnight, he'd told her over dinner last month, his hand warm on her thigh. But it happens. For you, it happens. She'd kissed him, tasting promise and transformation. Now, as the auctioneer's gavel fell on a Rothko that would hang in Minjun's sole office, Diana felt the weight of eyes on her back. She turned, already knowing who she'd find. Detective Park stood near the exit, older somehow, exhaustion carved into the lines around her eyes. She didn't approach during the auction, waiting instead until Diana stepped outside for air, the Manhattan evening crisp and alive around them. Miss Fisher. Park's voice held no warmth. Or should I say Mrs. Kang? I heard congratulations are in order. Diana's left hand instinctively touched the engagement ring, a flawless diamond set in platinum, understated and devastating. We haven't married yet, but you will. Park moved closer, her badge no longer visible but her authority unchanged. I wanted to see for myself, the woman who chose a criminal over her conscience, over justice. You wanted to see if I regret it. Diana met her gaze without flinching. I don't. He destroyed a man's life, multiple men's lives. He destroyed men who abused their power. Diana's voice was steel wrapped in silk, an echo of the man who taught her strength could be quiet. Dixon Rothschild embezzled millions from people who trusted him. The Park family laundered money and trafficked weapons. Minjun didn't create their crimes, he just ensured they faced consequences. That's not how justice works. Your justice wanted me to stay small and afraid, Diana said, each word measured. Your justice offered me protection in exchange for betrayal. Your justice would have kept me dependent on systems that have never protected women who look like me. She stepped closer. No longer the desperate woman Park had tried to save. I chose differently. You chose a criminal. I chose my own life. Diana's voice rang with absolute certainty. I chose strength over submission. I chose a man who gave me power instead of one who demanded I surrender it. I chose my own protector, instead of waiting for a system that's never protected me. Park's expression hardened. The investigation isn't over. We're still watching him. Watching you. Then watch, Diana said calmly. Watch me build a career I actually control. Watch me curate collections for museums across 3 continents. Watch me run businesses I own, not just assist in. She smiled, sharp and unapologetic. Watch me thrive in the life I chose, detective. Because I'm not your victim, and I never was. You're complicit. I'm free. Deanna turned toward the waiting car where Minjun stood, his eyes on her with the same intensity from that first kiss. There's a difference. She walked away from Detective Park for the last time, her heels clicking against pavement, her spine straight, her conscience clear in ways that had nothing to do with the law and everything to do with truth. Minjun opened the car door, his hand finding hers immediately. Park? She wanted to see if I'd changed my mind. And have you? Diana looked at him, the man who'd given her wealth, power, protection, and most importantly, choice. The criminal who'd been more honest than any lawful man she'd known. The beast who'd recognized her beauty when she'd forgotten it existed. Not even slightly, she whispered. He pulled her into the car, into his arms, into the life they were building together from shadows and silk and absolute terrifying devotion. Detective Park watched the car disappear into Manhattan traffic, her case files gathering dust, her conviction unwavering but irrelevant. Some women chose safety. Diana Fisher had chosen power, and that made all the difference. The gallery looked different, empty, its marble floors reflecting ambient light, like liquid gold, exactly as they had the night Diana's life fractured and reformed around a single, desperate kiss. Minjun had rented the entire space for the evening. Every painting she'd walked past that night returned to their exact positions. The caviar station even stood in the corner, a ghost of the moment she'd been cornered, terrified, and recklessly brave. You recreated it, she whispered, turning slowly in the center of the room. I wanted you to remember. Minjun stood where he'd stood 18 months ago, devastating in a 3-piece suit, his eyes holding that same dangerous promise. Remember the woman who wrapped her arms around a stranger and claimed him in front of everyone who mattered? Diana moved toward him, her heels echoing in the silence. I remember being desperate. I remember you being magnificent. He caught her hand, pulling her close. You looked at me, a man you didn't know. A man with a reputation that should have terrified you, and decided I was safer than the monster you knew. His thumb traced her knuckles. That night, you taught me something I'd forgotten. What? That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing action despite it. He reached into his jacket, withdrawing a small velvet box. You've spent 18 months proving that lesson over and over. Building your gallery, defending your choices, becoming exactly who you were always meant to be. Diana's breath caught as he opened the box. The ring was extraordinary, an Art Deco sapphire surrounded by diamonds, the setting custom designed to echo the curves of a Klimt painting they'd purchased together. Dark and light, beauty and danger, perfectly balanced. This stone is from a 1,920 seconds brooch, Minjun said softly. The era when women first started claiming their own power, their own independence, their own destinies. He dropped to one knee, his hand steady, his eyes absolute. Marry me, Diana Fisher. Not because I saved you, not because you owe me anything, but because we chose each other in the darkness and built something that can stand in the light. Tears blurred her vision. Yes, God, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, then rose and kissed her with the same consuming intensity from that first night possession and devotion and promise wrapped into one perfect moment. 3 years later, Deanna stood in her own gallery, Fisher Contemporary, a pristine space in Chelsea funded entirely by the trusts Minjun had established. The walls held emerging artists she'd discovered, invested in, championed. Her name appeared in Art Forum and The New Yorker, always accompanied by words like visionary and fearless. Minjun waited by the window, his reflection ghosting beside a Rothko that reminded her of blood and gold and transformation. His empire was spotless now, investment firms managing billions, art collections spanning continents, real estate holdings that generated wealth without shadows. Thinking about that night? He asked, sensing her mood. Always. Diana moved to his side, their wedding bands catching light. I kissed a stranger to escape a cage, and somehow found myself free. You freed yourself. He turned her to face him. I just made sure you had the resources to stay that way. She thought about the terrified woman who'd stood by that caviar station, calculating risks and finding courage in desperation, thought about Detective Park's warnings and Dixon's rage and every voice that had told her to choose safety over strength. That kiss was the most courageous thing I've ever done, she said quietly. Not because I chose you, but because I chose to act, to take control of my own fate, instead of waiting for someone else to save me. And look what you built with that courage. Minjun's hand settled at her waist, familiar and claiming. Your gallery, your reputation, your power. Our power, she corrected, leaning into him. I chose the monster who kept his promises, and he chose the woman brave enough to kiss him. Through the window, Manhattan glittered like scattered diamonds, a city of endless possibility, endless danger, endless choice. Somewhere out there, women were still making calculations about safety versus freedom, submission versus strength. Diana hoped they'd find their own monsters, the honest ones, the dangerous ones who gave power instead of demanding surrender. She'd found hers by a caviar station, claimed him with her lips, and built an empire from the ashes of who she used to be. Some love stories began with flowers and poetry. Theirs began with desperation and ended with devotion, and that made all the difference. The penthouse had evolved with them, no longer just Minjun's fortress, but their sanctuary. Art from Diana's gallery lined the walls alongside pieces from his original collection. Her books on modern curation sat beside his financial journals. 2 coffee cups on the counter every morning, her lipstick stain on his collar most evenings. Marriage looked like this. Comfortable, complex, and completely theirs. Diana stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Manhattan wake beneath a winter sunrise. Behind her, Minjun emerged from the bedroom, already dressed for a board meeting in Tokyo, his movements efficient and familiar. You're thinking too loudly, he said, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. I'm thinking about safety. She leaned into him, her hand covering his. Real safety. Not the kind Dixon promised with his name and money. Not even the kind Detective Park offered with her witness protection. What kind then? The kind we built. She turned in his embrace, her wedding ring catching light. A fortress made of trust and honesty and absolute commitment, where I know exactly who you are, all of it, the light and the shadows, and you know exactly who I am. Minjun's expression softened in the way it only did for her. The woman who kissed a stranger and changed both their lives. The woman who chose power over pretense. She smiled, fierce and certain. Who married a former criminal and helped him build something legitimate. Who runs her own empire and doesn't apologize for how she got here. No apologies, he agreed, his forehead touching hers. Not for what we were, not for what we became, not for what we'll always be to each other. And what's that? Mine, yours, ours. His hands framed her face. Forever complicated, forever honest, forever safe in ways that have nothing to do with law or convention or anyone else's definition of right. Diana kissed him, slow and deep, a promise renewed every day since that desperate first touch. When they broke apart, the city sprawled beneath them, 8 million people making their own calculations about safety and risk, love and power, who to trust with their vulnerability. She'd made her calculation 3 years ago by a caviar station. She'd choose the same path every single time. I have a meeting with the Tokyo investors, Minjun said reluctantly. And you have that showing at Fisher Contemporary, emerging artists from Seoul. She straightened his tie, a wifely gesture that still felt deliciously domestic and dangerous. 3 of them are extraordinary. You should see their work when you're back. I'll see them through your eyes first. That's always better. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. Te amo, Mrs. Kang. I love you too. She watched him gather his briefcase, his phone, his armor of legitimacy and power. Minjun? He paused at the door. Thank you for being exactly who you are. For never asking me to be small or safe or anything other than myself. His smile could still stop her heart. Thank you for kissing me when every instinct told you to run. For seeing the man beneath the monster. For building this life with me even when it was terrifying. The door closed behind him, and Diana stood alone in their penthouse, their fortress built on shadows and light, danger and devotion. A single reckless kiss and years of absolute commitment. Her phone buzzed with the day's schedule. Gallery opening, artist interviews, dinner with collectors who whispered her name with respect. Once upon a time, she'd been small and controlled and suffocating. Now she was powerful and free and completely dangerously happy. That kiss had been the beginning. This standing in their home, running her empire, loving the man who'd given her wings instead of cages, this was forever. And forever looked exactly right. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one ends with powerfully ever after. Diana Fisher kissed a stranger and found herself. Minjun protected her and found redemption. Together, they built a fortress from shadows and light, proving that real safety comes from choosing someone who sees all of you and loves you anyway. Their story is complete. But yours doesn't have to be. Subscribe now to my channel for more stories.